At 6:40 on a Thursday morning, a woman at a kitchen table in Columbus, Ohio is looking at her phone while a dishwasher hums behind her. The screen shows a retirement account. The balance reads $64,434. $900 a month has gone in for 5 years without a single miss, and her thumb is hovering over a button labeled Manage Transfers, the polite name for the button that stops everything. The number has been boring her for 2 years. She doesn't tap it, and the reason isn't discipline. The coffee finished, and she left for work. There is a date hidden inside that balance, a specific year already fixed by the arithmetic when the account stops crawling and starts outrunning her. She cannot see the date. Almost nobody can. And that blindness is the reason compounding feels slow. Because it does. That part of the title is true. But the slowness is not the machine failing. It's first gear. And it runs on a schedule most people quit before reading. My name is William, and here's the part that should actually make you angry. There is a thriving industry built on that boredom at the kitchen table. The trading apps with the confetti animations, the gurus selling velocity, the feed that keeps showing you someone who did it in 18 months. Impatience is not just a feeling anymore. It is a product category, and every one of its customers is recruited during the exact years you just watched that woman survive by accident. So let's be clear about what the answer is not. It is not a hotter stock, it is not more risk, it is not a system, a signal, or a second income, and in the beginning, it is not even more money. And if you've sat where she's sitting, thumb over the cancel button, thinking this obviously isn't working, that conclusion is not stupidity. Your brain is a linear instrument strapped to an exponential gauge. It was built for walking distances and next winter's food, and it reads every curve as a straight line. Misjudging compounding isn't a character flaw, it's factory settings. What I'm going to give you instead is the schedule itself, the one hidden in her balance, because the entire experience of compounding changes the day you know the timetable. It has a name in this video, the 7531 rule, and by the end, the flat years on your own chart will read completely differently. First, the backdrop, because the boredom has a body count. Vanguard's record-keeping data puts the median 401k balance at $44,115, and that median includes people near retirement, which tells you how many kitchen table mornings end with the button getting tapped. Morningstar's Mind the Gap study measures what impatience actually costs. Investors earn about 1.1 percentage points less per year than the very funds they're invested in, purely from moving money at the wrong moments. 1 point a year sounds like nothing. Over a working lifetime, it's the difference between two entirely different retirements. The machine works, the hands on it flinch.
Now let me introduce you properly to the woman at the table. Her name, for our purposes, is Denise, 38 years old, office manager at a dental practice, drives a 2016 CR-V with 96,000 miles, keeps the receipts from every oil change in the glove box in a rubber band. Denise started at 33, $900 a month into a plain index fund, and will run her whole story at a flat 7%, below the market's long-run average. Same honesty rule as always, so none of this stands on hope. Here is what her 5 years actually felt like. Year 1, she put in $10,800 and the market added about $350, a tank and a half of gas, in exchange for 12 months of showing up. Year 3, the balance passed $35,000, of which almost all was simply her own deposits wearing a different name. Year 5, the morning you watched, $64,434, and here's the sentence that almost ended it. $54,000 of those dollars were hers. 5 years of discipline, and the machine's total contribution was about 10 grand. That ratio is where most people quit, and I need you to hold that ratio because it is about to invert so hard it will sound like a different account. A quick aside before the schedule, because you need to see what your linear brain does to curves. There's an old riddle about a pond where the lilies double every day and cover the pond completely on day 48. Question: what day is the pond half covered? Day 47, 1 day before the end. And on day 40, after 40 days of doubling, the pond is less than half of 1% covered. A visitor on day 40 would swear the lilies had failed. 8 days later, they own the water. That pond is your account. Every balance that ever got called disappointing was a day 40 pond, photographed once and judged forever. So here is the vocabulary this whole video hangs on. Measure a compounding journey not in years, but in intervals, the time between equal milestones. For Denise, an interval is the time each new $100,000 takes to arrive. The intervals are not equal. They shrink on a schedule, and the schedule is the 7531 rule, which I'll put on the table in about a minute. One thing before I do, because I can hear it from here. William, I'm 46. I don't have time for anybody's 7-year first gear. Hold that thought, literally hold it, because the intervals answer to you in a way I'll show you near the end, and the answer is better than you think. Nobody watching this is locked out of the schedule.
Here is the 7531 rule. At $900 a month and 7%, Denise's first $100,000 takes a little over 7 years. Her second $100,000 takes just under 5. Her third takes about 3.5. And the intervals keep collapsing, 3, then 2.5, then 2, until the account crosses roughly $1.25 million, where the arithmetic does something that sounds invented, a full $100,000 slice. The same slice that once cost her 7 years of her life now arrives about 12 months. 7 years, then 5, then 3, then 1. Same deposit, same fund, same woman. The only thing that changed is the size of the balance doing the working, because growth is proportional to what's already there, and every interval hands the next interval a bigger engine. Read the rule backwards, and you finally have the answer the title promised. Why does compounding feel slow? Because the 7 is the only interval you're allowed to experience first. You are not living through slow compounding. You are living through the opening interval of a shrinking series, and almost everybody quits inside it, grading a 40-year machine on its longest gear. Jack Bogle, the man who invented the index fund Denise is quietly using, spent 50 years repeating the same sentence about this exact moment. Time is your friend. Impulse is your enemy. He wasn't being folksy. He was describing the 7531 rule from the other side of it. But I promised you the honest version, and the honest version has a shadow. The rule doesn't just explain the boredom, it maps exactly where people get hurt, because the intervals shrink in the math, but they stay invisible in the app. Nothing on Denise's screen announces that the 5 has replaced the 7. There's no notification for entering a shorter interval. The balance just grows slightly less slowly, which the linear brain rounds down to still slow. That's why the danger zone isn't year 1 when hope is fresh. It's years 4 through 9 when the first interval is grinding on. The deposits still outweigh the growth, and the confetti apps are one thumb tap away. Morningstar's gap, that 1.1 points a year, is not spread evenly across investors. It's concentrated in the people who moved during precisely those years, selling the pond on day 40. And the cruelest part? The exit always feels reasonable. It never feels like quitting. It feels like being realistic. Let me stop and put the whole thing in one breath, because we've stacked a lot. Compounding feels slow because you experience the longest interval first. The intervals shrink on a fixed schedule your app never shows you, and the years that feel most broken, 4 through 9, are the exact years the schedule is quietly being kept. That's the reveal. Everything from here is what it costs to disbelieve it. Quick word on why this video exists. The 18-month version of Wealth gets filmed constantly because it clicks. The 7531 version almost never gets filmed because a shrinking interval doesn't fit in a thumbnail. If you want more of the version that's actually load-bearing, subscribing is how you vote for it. And tell me one thing in the comments, the year you're in right now. 1, 4, 9, whatever it is, just the number. Those numbers decide what I make next, and every one gets read.
Now watch what disbelief costs, because 2 people are about to hit year 6 at the same time. Call them Carl and Dana, both 33 when they started, both $900 a month, both sitting at about $80,000 at the 6-year mark, statistically identical, down to the dollar.
Carl does something that feels smarter than quitting. He graduates, stops the transfers, leaves the $80,000 invested, and points his $900 a month at faster things, a trading account, 2 crypto positions, a friend's venture that's definitely about to close around. Nothing reckless in his mind, just velocity. And to be completely fair to Carl, the money wasn't wasted on his end either. It became life. Trips, payments, breathing room, spent the way unallocated money always gets spent, one reasonable month at a time. Dana changes nothing. Same $900, same boring fund, same commute. She just keeps the schedule. Run them both forward to age 63 at the same 7%. Carl's abandoned $80,000, untouched for 24 years, grows to about $407,000, which sounds respectable until it stands next to her. Dana's account, fed on schedule the entire time, lands at roughly $1.1 million. The gap is nearly $700,000, and the intervals tell you exactly where it came from. Carl kept the seed and skipped the shrinking intervals, the 5, the 3, the years the machine finally starts sprinting. He owned the pond until day 41 and sold the part where the lilies win. And here comes the and in the air. I can hear this one too. William, 7% is beige. My cousin tripled his money on a coin. People beat this all the time. Straight answer, because you deserve one. Some genuinely do. And the scoreboard on how many is not a mystery. S&P runs a public scorecard called SPIVA, and over 15-year stretches, roughly 9 out of 10 professional fund managers, people with terminals, teams, and every incentive on earth, failed to beat the plain index Denise is sitting in. Your cousin is welcome to be the exception, but building a retirement on being the exception while full-time professionals fail at it 9 times out of 10 isn't strategy. It's a lottery ticket wearing a strategy's clothes. If that stung a little, if there's a velocity purchase somewhere in your own last 2 years, don't scroll past the sting. It arrived cheap today. It cost $700,000 at Carl's prices. And now the part that sounds like science fiction until the arithmetic does it in front of you. Denise's decades, side by side. Her first 10 years produce about $156,000. Her second decade adds roughly $313,000, double the first. Her third decade adds about $629,000, double again. The last decade by itself out-earns her first 20 years combined. Not because the market improved, the return never changed, but because every interval hands the next one a bigger engine, and by the end, the account is doing in 12 months what the kitchen table version needed most of a decade for. Above a certain balance, time stops being something you wait through and becomes the single most productive employee you will ever have. A woman I'll call Ruth, 63, retired school secretary from Dayton, who kept the schedule for 31 years through 2 crashes and 1 divorce, put stage 4 better than any chart I could draw. She said the strange part was realizing the slow years and the fast years were the same years, that nothing about the machine ever changed except how much of it there was. The machine was never slow, she told her niece. I was just standing too close to it. Which brings me to the promise I made you, the one for everybody who did the math on their own age and felt their stomach drop. You're 46, 50, 53, and the 7-year first gear sounds like an insult. 2 things, and I mean both. First, yes, earlier would have been better. You get 1 breath to feel that, and then it has to go, because it's the only part of this with no schedule attached. Second, the intervals answer to the size of the feed. The 7-5-3-1 rule was Denise's rule at $900 a month. Double the feed and the schedule compresses. At $1,800 a month, the first $100,000 arrives in about 4 years, not 7. A 47-year-old starting from nothing at $1,800 a month crosses $100,000 by 51, and at the same flat 7% sits at roughly $630,000 by 63, with the intervals still shrinking underneath her. That's not a consolation prize. Statistically, that's a top-tier American retirement built entirely inside the years most people call too late. The rule never asked when you started. It only ever asked whether you kept the schedule. So here is what you actually do with this. 3 quiet moves, none of which require earning more by Friday. 1. Automate the feed tonight and then starve the feeling. Check the balance quarterly at most during your 7, because the first interval is the only one that punishes attention, and every look is another day 40 photograph of the pond. 2. Write your schedule down in advance. Take your own contribution, run the intervals, and put actual dates on paper. The year your first 100 is due, the year the 5 begins. A schedule you can read is the single strongest antidote to a curve you can't feel, because boredom loses its power the moment it's on the calendar. 3. Learn what the machine needs from you in the bad years, because the flat 7% in this video hides decades that felt like punishment while they were happening. How the rule survives crashes, why the average holds across a century of them, where the money actually has to live for any of tonight's arithmetic to be true. That's the floor under everything you just watched, and there's a full breakdown of it on this channel, sitting there for whenever your year 4 morning arrives. One more time. 6:40 on a Thursday, a kitchen table in Columbus, a dishwasher going quiet, a thumb hovering over the button. You can read that scene now. Not a woman whose plan is failing, a woman on day 40 of the pond, 7 months from the end of her first interval, holding a schedule she couldn't see. Somewhere across town, Carl is refreshing a chart before sunrise, up 9% on the month and $700,000 behind for the lifetime, certain that motion is progress. 2 accounts, 1 schedule, 1 thumb that never tapped the button. The slow years were never the obstacle, they were the down payment, and every single one of yours is already counting.